Hey everybody, this is Rustin with Metalholic, and today we've got Philly Byrne and Joe McGuigan of Ireland's thrash metal Grin and Sin Jesters Gama Bomb. How are you guys doing today?
Yeah, we're good. We're in the house, and that was a pithy introduction, if I may say so.
Kick ass.
Why, thank you very much. So first, let's get it out of the way. A loud yet somber moment this week. We lost thrash pioneer Jeff Hanneman. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jeff Hanneman, a sad loss, and I must say, like, a particularly frightening, health problem that he had and everything. I think everybody's a bit fucking terrified of that kind of thing. He was a big deal. Obviously, Slayer were a huge deal for us as teenagers and introducing us to thrash metal and extreme metal. It's just it's an inexplicably tragic kind of thing to happen. And I always got the feeling that he was a sort of genuine dude, just from anything I ever heard about him. So yeah, like, very, very sorry to hear it. I think a little tiny piece of our teenage upbringing has now become history.
Yeah, it was totally out of the blue as well, because something like Dio or something, when you see it kind of coming.
Right.
He's an older man, and
it was like Jeff. Everyone knew that he wasn't in the band playing for a long time, but yeah, incredibly sad. And if you look at the list of songs that he wrote with Slayer, the mind boggles how they could possibly continue without him and Dave Lombardo in the band.
Yeah.
Well, and that was a question I was going to ask you guys, because Kerry King's getting ready to do some Slayer dates with him as the only member of the band. With Jeff gone, Dave Lombardo seemingly pushed out of the band, Tom Murray has ongoing back issues. As a fan, do you think it's time for Slayer to retire the band?
You know what? I couldn't possibly comment, really, just because for us as thrash fans, like, we don't listen to Slayer stuff after Seasons in the Abyss, really. And like, I know that they do have lots of fans, their modern stuff. Like, I've seen Slayer live, and I'm glad I saw them and stuff with, like, the original lineup. Mm-hmm. But I wououldn't really be interested in going to see them or hearing them that they'd be doing either way.
It's kind of like, if you've got like a, what's the best analogy? If you've got an axe, right, and the head of the axe gets wrecked, so you change it, and then the shaft of the axe gets wrecked, so you change it. It's not the same axe anymore. And if Kerry King is going out and he's the only one in the band, well, that isn't really what you're there to see, is it? It's not the people, it's not the team. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I get the feeling that could disappoint a lot of very enthusiastic and a lot of very young people who are going to see.
I think like, people who are in bands don't seem to understand that the reason why people want to see Slayer is because of people like Dave Lombardo, or like the people who want to see Megadeth want to see Marty Friedman, And I just think it sucks that, like, shitty business decisions have to get in the way of fans' enjoyment of the real lineups of bands.
Weird personal stuff gets in the way, And Slayer, a band who absolutely rocked our world as young dudes, and still continue. Like, the Antichrist is one of my favorite songs, like, ever of any genre. So, it's
should they continue?
Yeah, I don't know if they should continue, but I also, did have to take pause and listen to a couple of tunes for Jeff Hanneman, for sure, yeah.
Well, let's get on to you guys. The last year or so has been huge for Gama Bomb. Lots of changes, new label, new guitarist, renewed vocal cords, if you will.
Yep, more or less bionic vocal cords.
One can only assume that played a significant role in it taking almost 4 years to get the new album out.
Well, yeah, that's it. We spent a long time. We enjoyed by our standards, such a phenomenal success with our last album that, there was still lots of cool stuff going on. There were lots of opportunities still opening to us all the time. So we spent like 2 years basically. Every time we sat down to come up with new ideas, somebody said, "Hey, want to go to Brazil?" or "Hey, want to go to Mexico?" Or
I think
so we were just like, yes. So that took a long time, and then once we kind of realized that, let's get writing. I think different obstacles just come up. My voice. Damo got hurt. He broke a tendon in his hand. We had ongoing business sort of trouble with our label, and Luke, our very good friend, left the band. So it was far from ideal, but I don't know. It's a learning curve.
I think the idea with the last album, even before we went in to do it, was to try and do a really long tour. To try and do a world tour, because we'd only ever really toured in Europe and the UK before that. So we knew that it was going to take 2 years to kind of do that, and we were okay. We knew that the world doesn't need a Gama Bomb album every year or anything like that. So, but yeah, like Philly said, with all the stuff to do with injuries, members leaving, and the label problems and stuff, it gave us a lot of time to work on the songs and then come back and rework them and try and get the best choruses and the best kind of stuff that we could get out, So it was actually to our advantage leaving it this long,
Right. Now, with Philly out for a little while recovering, Joe, you actually got to sing lead for a show, I think. What was that like for you?
Yeah, like we've done like some shows before, like where if Philly, was sick or something like that as the flu, where I've had to sing before, and like me and Philly come up with a lot of the parts together, so it wasn't really a huge deal, but it's kind of a completely different experience. Like Philly really fronts the band and does a really good job of it, whereas whenever I'm singing, it's kind of more of a kind of sacred Reiki kind of just thrash singing thing,
Right. Gotcha.
Ebony and Ivory, Please. You're Paul and I'm Stevie.
You're fucking Sean Connery and I'm Roger Moore.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
very happy to be Roger Moore.
Exactly. I'm Stevie Wonder, you're Paul McCartney. I'm Michael Jackson, you're Paul McCartney.
Can I be 5-star if you're Michael Jackson?
I'll be 3T, you be 5-star.
Okay.
Philly, were you nervous or reserved at all heading back into the studio after the surgery?
I was, yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of this, while I'm still recovering physically, it takes up to 2 years to recover from the kind of surgery and the injury that I had. I think that the more ephemeral kind of damage that it did, the damage to my self-esteem and to my self-image and my confidence were much more serious, and they were a bigger thing to get over. And I think right up until we were in the studio for some time, that was still a bit of an issue for me, When I listen to the album, I can still hear the parts I recorded first. And I always think to myself now, God, like when I listen to them, I can hear myself holding myself back or being kind of undermining myself or something. I don't think it's anything anyone else will ever hear, but, I remember it, so I notice it. But yeah, recording really turned me around because I realised that I had all these other parts of my voice that I'd unlocked with all this kind of crazy stuff that had gone on, So it's kind of like Daredevil, he lost his sight, but he gained all these other super senses, and I gained vocal superpowers, where if I wanted to, I could sound like David Lee Roth and all this kind of thing. And yeah, it was fantastic, and it was all down to the guys with me in the band, and how confident they were and how supportive they were of and encouraging of the way my voice sounded. So yeah, it was really scary going back in. Man, to be honest, it was scary even opening my mouth to talk for a while after the operation. So, yeah, absolutely, it was a daunting experience. But when you come out the other side of something like that, and you have a couple of positive life lessons out of it, and you have a really good album, you just say to yourself, "This, for all the crap it was worth it."
Yeah, and I think the new album having a lot more metal in it rather than kind of crossover.
Right.
It really suits kind of Philly singing in a more Iron Maiden-y kind of tone, like where he can do a bit of Bruce Dickinson or a bit of Bobby Blitz kind of stuff instead of just having to belt out the lyrics at 100 miles an hour.
Although we still do that too.
Yes.
But I think, I think it made my voice grow up a little bit. And sometimes when I actually listen back to some of the old stuff now, I kind of feel like I could have brought more to that, with the kind of skills that I've realised.
Well, that's it. A few weeks ago, me and Philly were listening to the first ever demo that Gama recorded 10 years ago, and we were just like, God, who was that guy?
Yeah, it doesn't even sound like me, But that's fine too, we all get through these things, Nashville Skyline isn't what Bob Dylan sounds like now,
Yeah.
And that's it really. So it's been an interesting couple of years.
The new album, of course, the fourth, The Terror Tapes, marks your first album with AFM Records, but it's also the first album for new guitarist John Roach. How did his presence impact the writing and recording of this album?
That's an interesting question. John is a fairly unique kind of guy. He's just like a crazy mixture between a sort of spaniel puppy and some kind of morbid serial killer.
You find it a lot in really, really excellent artists of any sort of description. Always tend to be pretty eccentric, and John definitely fits that bill. He's a crazy guy, and he's a lot more out there than anybody we've ever had in the band. But he's an unbelievably good guitar player and lead guitar player. So it really kind of changed our approach guitar-wise in this album in the past, because Luke was our rhythm guitar player and used to write some of the stuff with me. It was always a lot more kind of Nuclear Assault, Exodus-y kind of rhythm guitars. Mm-hmm. Whereas because John can play lead and Domo can play lead, it means that we can kind of do a lot more of
Thin Lizzy-ish kind of cool double lead.
Yeah, Thin Lizzy kind of Agent Steel,
Trade-offs,
just kind of cool dual lead bits. Or
I think that was stuff we always fantasized about. And I think the thing with John as well is you know, the way we came to know John was because we needed him to help us out, you know, when Gama got hurt. And, you know, I think initially when we asked him to join the band, it was kind of like our conception of him was that, you know, he was a dude who could do the job. But we actually got something much better, because what we really got was another artist into the band, which is what you really want.
Yeah.
You don't just, like, lots of bands make the mistake where they don't hook up with somebody else who's actually a recording artist. They make the mistake of hooking up with somebody who's just there to do the job, you know. And, you know, John has his own band and has written loads of different types of music, and he's a, you know, a fantastically competent musician and a really sparky dude. So we were really lucky in that sense. So it's like we are a different band now because he's you know, there are different parts in the machine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were very, very lucky to get him. It's a miracle that Irish weather is so bad, you see, because the weather is so bad here that when you're a teenager, you just stay in the house, play your instrument.
Play the guitar.
And it means that we're now spoiled for excellent drummers, bassists, guitar players. You know, that's
Well, that was a nice segue, because I was going to say every band strives to make each album their best, and while I think you guys did that here, it's my favorite thrash effort so far of 2013. I also think it's your most evolved and, dare I say it, mature album so far.
ooh, the M word.
No, don't say that.
No, I think in terms of being grown up about being children, yes it is.
Yeah.
You know, we're man children. That's what we are, man. We're man children. We're Ghostbusters pajama wearing bastards.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And yeah, like, I think the new album explains that point of view better than anything we've done in the past. You know, well, you know, we've always written songs like We Respect You and things like that, where we were talking about the things that we love. But I think this album I think it is a bit more of us on it. I think it sounds like us talking a bit more than ever, you know?
Yeah. I think because the last two albums were really brother and sister, you know, they come out really quick, and it was very, very much just exactly the same style. Having time off and, you know, wanting to be a bit more metal about it, and wanting to, I don't know, give the band some, like, I don't know, just change things up very, very slightly. Like, it was really, really cool. Like, and we still have our rules that we stick by, and we're, like, not going to start writing 7-minute songs or having acoustic intros or any of that sort of stuff. Yeah. Because, you know, our idea is to kind of be, you know, I don't know, just like the AC/DC or Beatles of thrash, and keep bringing out, you know, the same kind of sounding early stuff where you're like, this all sounds good and similar. So for us to progress is to write better choruses and better songs.
It's refinement, not innovation. You know, that's the smart way of putting it.
Yeah,
and I think it's something that's actually quite alien. You know, quite often when I read reviews and stuff, people will say that there's not much progression, and I think there's an obsession with progression because people don't recognize consistency. People aren't familiar with bands who sound consistently like themselves.
Yeah,
and it's so difficult to actually achieve that as a band, to actually just be yourself, sound like yourself, and to work on being a better version of yourself, that I think it actually freaks people out when they hear it. They're kind of like, this album sounds just like their second album. Damn right it does. It's just a better version of the second album, you know, that kind of way. So that's us, you know, as I've said before, if it ain't broke, strap a rocket to it. That's what we say.
Absolutely. Some of our favorite bands, our favorite albums, are bands that were consistent in their sound and style. That's what we loved about them so much.
Absolutely. Kiss, yeah, like all those bands, Rolling Stones, all those, you know, and it's just like our you know, our tendency to write humorous songs as well. Like the levity that we apply to, you know, the ideas in the music. Like, people sometimes come across Gama and say to themselves, they're not serious, I can't take it seriously, and then they go home and they put on Live After Death by Iron Maiden, or they listen to an album by Chuck Berry, or they're listening to Kiss. Like, the same attitude of having fun with your music exists across loads of bands that everybody accepts. It's just that because we're a new band, or we're a niche kind of genre of music, we're looked at as though we're supposed to particularly be pushing the boat out and inventing new things and taking it hugely seriously. That's not really our bag, you know.
Right. And when I said mature earlier, I didn't mean getting away from the humorous, the levity, and all that. I just meant the growth.
Yeah,
for you guys in your sound and how it's coming across, because it really is an exceptional album. And let's talk. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about a few of the tracks if we've got a few.
Sure. Yeah. Whatever you like.
Matryoshka Brain, it may be my personal favorite, at least this week. What's the story behind that one?
Oh, that's really interesting. That's nice of you to say so, because I think even inside the band, it's not a song that, you know, I don't think it's a song that we all got really motivated by once we heard the finished product.
Yeah, the tune kind of grew out of two very Gama Bomb influences, like Nuclear Assault and musically, and Age and Steel lyrically. And like we've always been such big fans of Agent Steel and stuff that we've never really written a song in their kind of in their vein lyrically. So it was kind of nearly done as sort of a semi homage to those guys.
And I guess what, I wrote the riff in it.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's my riff. There's always one riff on each album that I write.
Yeah.
Because that's my creative output, and that's on there. The fact that Joe rewrote it and fixed it and made it a real riff shouldn't really come into the equation. That song as well. Joe and I have an acute interest in real life mysteries and unsolved phenomena and all these other interesting things that Wikipedia is a fantastic source for. And over the last 2 or 3 years, we've become very interested in a lot of that thing. I mean, a lot of that kind of unsolved, vaguely paranormal kind of stuff, which of course comes back to Agent Steel, who are a gloriously paranoid and skeptical band. So, things like the Dyatlov Pass incident in Russia in the 1950s and the lead masks case and all these other interesting unsolved mysteries. Yeah. So we actually stuck those into it. A Matryoshka brain itself is a concept from theoretical physics where you build a computer around a star and you use all the power from the star. And when I was reading about it, what really amazed me was that they were saying that it would be powerful enough because of all the heat that it could actually simulate the entire universe while the universe is there. So there were, some people were saying, is our universe the product of a Matryoshka brain that's running somewhere? Yeah. And that was originally the idea behind the song. It actually also features a nod to the movie Chud, which is a very popular 1980s New York-based subterranean horror movie.
Right.
And there's a crazy homeless guy in that. He says they've got the power to shut the sky, and that's where that came from in the chorus.
Backwards Bible has a real Nawabum feel to me. I feel moments of Maiden, Motorhead mixed with some Overkill. Was that intentional?
Well, it's interesting that you say Nawabum because we've got our own genre with this album, Noirum, which I think rolls off the tongue even better than Nawabum, and that stands for New Wave of Irish Ripping Metal. So that's kind of where we're at, ripping metal rather than traditional thrash. I think is where we're going with this. Backwards Bible, Joe, music.
Musically, it was definitely more metal, less just super speed riffs. There's lots and lots of fast stuff in it, but like the whole intro and all that kind of crunchy stuff was doing tours with Exodus and stuff and being like, let's have a bit like
cool, crunchy
that kind of buzz at the start.
Joe, is it true that you wrote this song on the kazoo and banjo?
Yes.
It's a composition for kazoo and banjo. No, that's not true.
Well, I've always said if you could strip a song back to kazoo and banjo and it still sounded good, you really had something on your hands there. So.
We've always kind of fantasized about this live album that we want to make called Gama Byrne, and it's just going to be us on stage with bales of hay instead of Marshall stacks, and we'll just play really fast acoustically.
And play a fiddle really, really fast for the solo. Yeah, Backwards Bible is one of my favourite songs because it's a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. I think in metal, the whole kind of anti-religious and satanic thing that goes on is absolutely hilarious. Like it's beyond parody. Like
that was part of it, like touring with Dark Funeral and stuff like that, and seeing how seriously they took all that, and God deflecting armor and all that kind of stuff. Like they really believed it when they were on stage and stuff, but backstage and you talk to them and they were just like, we're just in a band,
it was normal dudes. So one of my favorite things is the idea that you can take an object like, say, a crucifix, that you can tilt it 180 degrees, and just by doing that you've automatically made it evil. It's got to be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of, that just by turning an object the other way around it suddenly becomes the absolute opposite of what it is. So the whole idea of the Black Mass or the Antichrist or the upside down cross, I was just kind of like, Jesus, I mean, does that mean if you put your trousers on upside down, they're evil trousers now, Yep. And we started joking about the idea of a backwards mass where everything was backwards. The priest's clothes are on upside down, everybody's, I don't know, hanging off the ceiling or something. And that's where we came from with that. It also has some of my favourite lyrics of any of our songs in it too. It has the line, "Tonight is the last day of my life," which I think is very profound.
I also loved the big top circus melody breakdown in Terrorscope was truly inspired.
Yeah, what's his name? Amon Kachaturian was that composer's name? Saberdance. Yeah, I think, Joe, you were saying Damo put it in as a joke in the demo, and then...
Well, me and Damo we have a way of writing songs where we'll make some curry and drink lots and lots of cans of Heineken, and then proceed to try and write a song. And whatever way we were doing it that night, Domo suggested doing this thing, and we completely forgot about it the next day. And when we were listening to the demo again, we said, "Oh my god, what did we record that?" And then we listened to it a couple of times, and we're like, "Yeah, actually, that sounds pretty good."
It's a very flatulent songwriting process, for the sense. Cans of beer, curry, and
belches,
late nights. Yeah, very flat. A very gaseous songwriting like that.
Yep.
A very gaseous songwriting process. Yeah, Terroscope is another really good song, and luckily it sounds awesome when we play it together and stuff too. So I was actually thinking about it the other day, and I actually think it's probably one of the best songs we've ever written. Terroscope. It does this thing that pop songs do. I've realised it does this thing that normally only happens in pop songs, where it does a bit of the chorus, and then when it comes back, it does a big version of the chorus. You know what I mean? Where the first one's only a little, a little bit of leg. Second one's the whole wazoo. See all the way to Mexico.
I want to give big props to Joe for tracking down Graham Humphreys to do the album art. Did you?
Yep, lots of props to you, Joe, for that. Absolutely.
Did you tell him basically what you were looking for, or did you sort of give him free rein?
Yeah, we did. We didn't know what we wanted to call the album, and we didn't know what we wanted to put on the cover, which are significant issues when you're getting that close to releasing your album. And I think that's because, as we were talking about, it took so long, and we had such a hard time, and everybody cared so much. Everybody gave a really good goddamn about what happened.
Fucking stupid.
Yeah, and like we cared so much that it was like, no, there's not going to be an S at the end of that word. Like quite literally just anything, because things mattered so much that when you're putting the last card on the house of cards, it's got to be absolutely perfect. So when it came to, like, we already secured Graham as somebody to work with, which we were pinching ourselves, and we still didn't know what we were going to do on the album cover. And I was sitting at home, and I always keep like an art pad near me in the house in case I have ideas. And I took it out, and I was just thinking, oh my god, like, we're going to call it the Terror Tapes, but we don't know what we're going to put on the cover. And then a couple of different things came to mind. The reels on a tape machine, I kind of realised that, could you turn that into a skull? So I took the pencil and I drew this picture of a big tape machine, a big tall sort of Westworld or NASA mission control kind of tape machine where the reels are the eyes of a skull. And then I was like, right, well, we're going to have to do something heavy metal with this. So almost default, I put up like lots of tape bleeding out of it, and there was a guy in the tape. And then when we brought to Graham, I think what seemed like the okay idea that we had suddenly became the best fucking possible cover that we could have dreamt up. I'm astonished by the art that he's done. I'm really, really astonished. I think it harks back to a time when people really cared about what happened in the art for their albums, and I think that it blows the pants off. God, most metal album covers that I've seen for the last 10 or 20 years. And also, they would do like one album cover that I really do like that's a metal album cover is The Hunter by Mastodon, the sculpture. It's a sculpture by, I think he's a Swedish or a Danish guy who makes loads of really crazy animal sculptures. And I loved it because it looked a little bit like Screaming for Vengeance, kind of, 3D, shapes and things like that, which I thought was cool. But I think the Terror Tapes, man, it's incredible. It's not iconic yet, it's not historic yet, but it's a better cover than Among the Living. It's a fucking, it's a better cover than Kill 'Em All, so really, really, really proud of working with him, and fair play to Joe for having the tenacity to scour the internet for his email address.
Yeah, everything's out there these days. It took 4 years for the Terror Tapes, but I understand you guys are already planning to start recording the next album perhaps as early as late this year?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we are. We're already talking about it. We have a couple of song titles flying around. And
yeah, we've got lots of ideas. We're kind of conscious because the last tour was so long that we want to make sure that this one's kind of half the length. We want to do like 60 or 70 shows and try and get back in, for Crimbo.
Crimbo being Irish for Christmas. I think as well we're in a slightly different place personally, as dudes this time around. We've got some guys in college, we've got, there's jobs on the side and things like that. So, we'd rather do things at our own pace right now, like we're going to do all the shows that are the big shows, the flashbang stuff that's really exciting to do. We're going to have a good experience with it, but we're not going to lose sight of, progression, progression in the loosest sense of the term. Reiteration, I suppose, is the better word.
I think it's a good way of doing it because, we were in America in 2010 and now we're coming back in 2013, so it's good that like we're not there every year, you know, so that people are like, oh yeah, I'll just go and check them out next time they come to town, you know, because it's going to be like a couple of years down the line, you know, next album or maybe the album after, whenever we come back after this time. So it's cool. Like it means that like you're not one of these bands like Creator that you've seen so many times that, you know, you don't want to go and see them again, you know.
You know, and it seemed like when we were teenagers that was how it was. You know, we were like 16 and we'd been listening to, you know, Pearl Jam for like 5 years, but we're like 4 years, but they'd never ever come. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think when CDs and when physical music still ruled the world, touring obviously was much less of a mainstay for people filling their swimming pools. So people didn't really tour as much and stuff. They didn't come around as often.
Yeah.
So I don't really mind being one of those bands, you know. I don't mind if there's a 16-year-old dude who really likes us and the next time he sees us he's 19. That's okay with me, you know, because it means that we're more likely to still be a special thing for him, you know, as opposed to coming back all the time and wearing the arse out of your trousers, just annoying people, playing the same goddamn set over and over again, you know.
Nice. So before we get out of here, the pointless question of the week, since you guys mentioned Marty Friedman at the top of the interview. I once did an interview with him back when he was still in Megadeth, and he had just gone through a whole ton of interviews that day, and he was so tired of answering the same questions. So I asked him, what question would you most like to be asked? He said, ask me whose bathwater I would most like to drink.
Wow, okay.
So that is your question.
That's good. I would like to drink actress Marion Cotillard's bathwater. That's what I thought. Yeah, I would drink her bathwater right away. Right down.
I'm just going to be a nerd and go for George Romero.
His bathwater, he is like totally flaky and old.
He's an old man.
You're going to drink like a yard of skin.
Yeah, there's going to be lots of scales in there or whatever. And but, like, you know, maybe I'll inherit some of his genius.
Twizzly old pubes and bits of fluff off his old weather coat that he wears all the time. Yeah, no, I was thinking more like, you know, sexy bathwater. But I suppose, yeah, if you could distill genius in bathwater... God, it sounds more, but I was going to say Dio, because, you know, you'd probably get visions from Dio's bathwater, but, you know, that's got a slightly sort of macabre kind of twinge to it. Who else? Here's one for you, right? Whose bathwater would be the least likely to be disgusting, you know?
Out of every person ever?
Yeah, you know, so like, for example, you know, if I take a bath, you know, I'm an averagely clean dude, you know, so like it wouldn't be
I know the answer to that
anyway.
Immediately.
Yeah.
You know the female sexy M&M? The one that's got like legs and like lips and like lady eyes?
What? Oh, the M&M. Oh, you don't mean the rapper, you mean M&M's the sweets?
Yeah, the sweet, you know.
Yeah.
The candy M&M. Yeah.
Oh, like the lady M&M.
Lady M&M with nice legs.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Or Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah, because she's not even real, so the water would just still be water. But
yeah, it would be a drawing of water.
Yeah, it would be a drawing of water, so you'd effectively be eating a piece of paper. Yeah, so that's it then. I suppose we wouldn't drink Marty Friedman's bathwater.
No, I've heard some strange stories about Marty Friedman on tour, and I'm not going to go any further than that. So I definitely don't want to drink his bathwater.
Let's just say like there's some outlandish shit going on, and you know that bathwater. He's a hard touring man. You know, Marty's toured hard. I don't think that bathwater is going to be exceptionally clean if you've just, you know, done 20 gigs. Yeah,
that'd be like saying, do you want to drink John Kevill's bathwater? Absolutely not. Look.
Kevill, you know, I'll drink his beer, but I won't drink his bathwater. And occasionally his spit.
Awesome. Philly Byrne and Joe McGuigan of Gama Bomb, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. The new album, The Terror Tapes, already out overseas, coming out here this week, May 7th in America. Hopefully we'll get to see you guys later this fall here in the States. Thanks so much for taking the time, guys.
Thank you. We're coming back. We'll be there in August. We're going to come around and we're going to rack up your whole show.
Yeah, we're going to wreck the place and drink your beer.
Or our bathwater.
Or your bathwater, depending on who you are. We've already outlined several.
Yeah, the criteria.
If Jessica Rabbit is listening, Jessica, we're game.
Call us.
Call us.